Alright, so today we're going to learn how to open a door with Matinee and a trigger, and then also make it so that there's an emissive map that displays a red bar which indicates a locked door, but changes to green when the door is open. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Activate the trigger, the door opens, 5 seconds later the door closes, and the bar turns to red. Pretty a simple effect that can be used in a variety of different ways, but I'll show you the basics of it. So we're going to go in and open another level that I have. And this is just a basic box where the players start, a light, a trigger, and a door frame. I'm going to go to my package here and grab one of my door shapes. And then add these things in as interp actors. It's important that they're interp actors because they're going to be moved. Stack meshes can't be moved within actual gameplay. Drag it in the door frame, duplicate it, and make sure they're lined up. They are. So that looks good. So now we're going to find the materials that the doors use. Right now they're using this door_hallway material. I'm going to go in this material. Simple stuff. Diffuse, specular, normal maps. Earlier on I created an emissive map in Photoshop, which basically I just used the original texture and then saved this, blacked it out with a paint bucket, and then added 2 bars of white onto it, and then exported it as a target and imported it into the package. So if you select that in the content browser, hold down T, press anywhere in this window, it'll bring up your texture sample. I'm going to right click in the same window and go to Parameters, New Vector Parameter. This vector parameter allows us to, from the exterior, so from Matinee or Kismet, control this value, which when multiplied with the texture sample can change its color. So you'll see that you have RGB controls down here, as well as alpha. Also have a parameter name here. This is important because we have to know which parameter we're talking to. So I'm going to call it door_color. And I'm going to change its value of red to 1, so that by default our door is always red, locked. I'm going to hold down M, press inside the window, we'll get a multiply. And then I'm just going to drag this multiply in the middle here. Add the parameter in the B, texture sample in the A, and drag this to the emissive. So now we have, make sure our red is actually set to 1 here, that helps, a nice little emissive lock here. Save the material. Now we're going to right click on the material and go to create new material instance constant. Okay. It's important that we make a material instance constant because if we were to just use the original material of the door, and then we were to go change this through Matinee, any other door using that material would also change. So adding a material instance constant basically allows us to just change that door and that door only. You'll notice that if you go all the way down to the bottom under vector parameter value, if you check that box and then go to, say you want to make it yellow, 1 in red, 1 in green, it does it right here. So you can control that instance without going in and actually changing the original material. Let's set that back to red. And then I'm going to save the package. Make sure you do this or it won't work in your level. Alright, now inside the actual level, with this trigger here, one thing to note is that I have this trigger set to not hidden. So if you double click on it and go down display, uncheck the hidden box. So that way you can actually see the trigger when you go and interact with it. Open up your Kismet and go to new event using trigger 1 used. So that's with the trigger highlighted. A few things I want to change in here. Aim to interact makes it a pain. I just uncheck that. Max trigger count to 0 so that we can use this as many times as we want. And then trigger delay set to 2. Now I'm going to open a new Matinee sequence. This will allow us to animate the doors opening and also its So now we want to make sure that that material instance is actually linked up to the door. So I'm going to right click on our door with our material instance highlighted in our content browser. Right click on the door, go to material, assign from content browser. Do the same for the right door. Alright, that looks good. Now, with that trigger that you put in earlier, just make sure that it's hidden is unchecked. Later on, when you actually make this in the level, you'll want to hide all your triggers, but for right now, so you can actually see it, you want your trigger to be unhidden. So, now we're going to open Kismet, and with our trigger selected, we're going to right-click, New Event using Trigger 1, Used. A few things we want to change here. I'm going to deselect Aim to Interact, change Max Trigger Count to 0, so that we can use the trigger over and over again, and then the trigger delay to 2 seconds. Now we're going to right-click in Matinee, and go to New Matinee. Sorry, right-click in Kismet. Double-click in Matinee, that'll open our Matinee editor. I'm just getting Kismet out of the way right here. And drag the green arrows to make sure that our actual playtime in this Matinee is 2 seconds. And the red arrows so that when the Matinee stops at 2 seconds, the Matinee actually stops instead of continuing all the way to 5 seconds. And I'm going to select our left door, right-click in Matinee and go to New Empty Group. Call this door left. Do the same for door right. Now with our left door selected, we're going to right click on it and go New Movement Track. So this track will allow us to actually animate the door moving. Going to go ahead and put a key point at 0.5 seconds because I don't want the door to start moving until after the trigger, 0.5 seconds after the trigger has been touched. And then drag the slider all the way to 2 seconds and move the door to an open position. And when that looks good, press enter and add another keyframe. So that door animates now. We'll do the same for the right door. So, now both doors animate. That's great. I'm going to right click on door left again and go to New Vector Material Parameter Track. This is how we can control the color of the door. So it's going to ask us for two things. It's going to ask us for the material. So this is important because it needs to know what material it's looking for. I'm going to open up our content browser and make sure we have our instance that we had selected. And then press the green arrow to put it in the target material box. And this will ask for the parameter name. Remember earlier we set it to door color. So now it knows what material it's looking for, and it knows what parameter it's looking for. So now to the right of this vector material parameter track, it's going to have this little graph button. If you press that, it displays our data up in this graph chart up here. Now, right now it doesn't have anything displayed. That's because there's no points, no data points, no keyframes. But if you add a keyframe at 0 seconds, it's going to display our RGB values. Problem is they're all on top of each other. So to actually access the red value, you turn off the blue and the green boxes up in the top left here. Right click on the red box and set its value to 1. So now our red is on by default. Add another keyframe at 0.5 seconds and it automatically sets all the values to 0. I'm going to turn off the blue and the red and then set the green to 1. So if you turn on all the red and green and blue data points, you should see a nice little X. And then if you actually use the slider back and forth, you should see the colors change from red to green. So we're going to exit out of this, open back up Kismet, grab our trigger slot, drag the used to play. I'm also going to drag the used to reverse, and then right click on the reverse and add a active delay of 5 seconds. So after 5 seconds of being used, the door reverses the matinee. So now if we build the lighting, and let's give this a test. And there we go. So this is just a basic example of how to use this technique. A more common example is to animate a light turning on and off. So let's say you want to have a light flicker in a room. You would use the same emissive texture sort of technique where you turn on and off the emissive texture by changing it from white to black, and then you also animate the light, the actual point light outside of the light, flickering on and off at the same time. So there you are. Enjoy.